I look at the poll and I look at the distance. I spent more time on polls in the last week than I have all year. Is it over?
I mean, look, if you look at these numbers, Tom, that we see in Philadelphia's suburbs, across Pennsylvania, the numbers we see coming out of Ohio, Florida, some states that we don't even expect to be in contests that now Hillary Clinton is moving into, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia even, her campaign thinks they have a shot. Yeah, look, it looks like this thing is wrapped up. But here's the thing, and you know just as well as anybody else, and anybody who knows who's covered Brexit, is there a possibility that we're dramatically undercounting the Trump vote? That's, I think, the thing that's on pollsters' minds. Either, if you look at the numbers now, a 9-point gap in Pennsylvania, a 6-7 point gap in Ohio, that's really difficult to close. Either we're dramatically undercounting who is going to come out for him and vote, or it doesn't look close right now.
Well, that gets to the prescription for pollsters and, frankly, everybody else. Can you gauge who will turn out? Is there any history of that?
Well, here's what was so fascinating about this race right now. When you have a candidate in Donald Trump who's actively going out there and saying, look, I'm running such a vicious, brutal, personal campaign because I'm actually trying to suppress her turnout in states. I don't think you've really seen someone come out and say that that is exactly what they're doing. They're trying to make people turned off, less motivated by going back through allegations that have swirled around the Clintons for more than a decade now. So it's really hard to model, even if you try to model sort of the Obama turnout and model that against what we think Clinton's going to get. It's really hard to gauge a candidate like Donald Trump on what kind of turnout we're going to see there, just because we haven't had someone similar to the kind of candidacy, the kind of populist, aggressive, forward, the message he's sending in such a long time. So the existing turnout models, they don't really work as well as we would hope to really see where we're going to get to on November 8th.
To extend that point, Megan, is this the undecideds deciding, or is this people crossing the aisle?
It's a bit of both. So there's no question that the release on last Friday of the video showing those incredibly aggressive comments that Trump made about women have dramatically shifted the narrative. You've seen literally the bottom drop out of polls, not just among women, but among college-educated voters. And that's really important because while Donald Trump has always polled well among less educated voters, he actually was doing very well among white college-educated voters as well. And the polls have consistently shown a big shift since Friday on that. He is doubling down on this strategy. There's no question that his camp thinks that we are just not seeing the numbers the way we should see them, that by appealing to his base through this strategy, that by consistently bringing up things that have been on the far right fringes of the party for a long time, that galvanizes enthusiasm and is going to push this tidal wave of support his way. So far, we just simply haven't seen it.
Given the break that we see within the Republican Party, how is this affecting the other races? What is happening with the Senate, the House, etc.?
This is what we're trying to measure now, is what people are calling the Trump drag or the Trump effect. And this is why you see so many Republicans in close races really trying to run the other way from him, his comments, his message. Although, again, the Republican Party remains in tremendous turmoil about this candidacy. Throughout this campaign, we saw a sort of interesting shift. Well, even though people were supporting Trump, they also were able to support establishment Republicans who actually didn't adhere to his message closely. Now that we see this real shock split in the Republican Party, internal warfare like we haven't seen since the 1970s is really testing people as to where they're going to align, and whether we see the Trump drag effect or a Trump boost effect is what we're trying to model.
Megan, I'm glad you're sitting down. We've just learned that the Washington Post has endorsed Mrs. Clinton. I know this is a shock to you, and I'll see you in the food court down there, and we'll provide medication. What are the significance of newspaper editorial, opinions anymore in this game?
Well, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but in terms of the newspapers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, those aren't going to really move the needle. What is moving the needle this election is newspapers that have come out that have supported, Republican candidates for. We've had newspapers that have supported Republican candidates for more than 100 years in states like Ohio support Hillary Clinton in this election. I do think that matters. I do think that, when you look across the piece and the media is universally almost supporting one candidate, and little small town, hometown newspapers in states like Ohio, in states like Pennsylvania, where it's really going to matter to people when they still look at their local newspaper for their sort of barometer of a moral compass or some sort of outside influence, that does matter to people, and it still matters in little towns where people still depend on their local newspaper.